All right, how are you?
Good. How are you, miss?
I am better now. You know how it is. It's my fun job. Oh, thank God we get a lot of sick days in the other job. Goodness. All right, I'm going to keep admitting people. I want to get the ball on the road. Is group 5 here?
Yes. Professor, I had a quick question about the presentation. I sent you an email, and I was wondering if we could play a recording of our presentation because we have the presentation up and everything, but whenever we kept practicing, we kept messing up and skipping over important information. There was just a lot. And so we ended up recording it. And I was wondering if we could play that recording and then just answer questions afterwards, or if you want us to
How long
do
is
it
the
live.
recording?
It's 8 minutes, I believe, a little less than 8. It's like 7.
I really don't like doing that too much, but let's
Okay.
let's go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Make sure when you hit share screen, click the box that says at the bottom, it's hard to see. It's like optimized for videos on it or something.
Okay.
So we can hear it.
Okay. Because I sent you the link to the video if you wanted to play it, but I can also play it if you'd like.
Go ahead. Like I said, I just got done with one job and I'm popping in for this job.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to join the Zoom on my computer then.
So you should know when you email me, you need to make sure you do it. I mean, like if you're in a rush to get a presentation done and you want me to respond to an email within a day, sometimes it won't happen if I'm, I'm not able to do it that quickly. So I do work during the day somewhere else. Well, it's not somewhere else. I'm still here in this house, which I wish I could escape. Thankfully, I get to work at home, I guess, but all right, are you ready or are you still looking for it?
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to join the Zoom from my computer so that I can bring it up there. Because I only have a webcam on my phone, so sorry.
Okay. Got everybody coming in. Boy, almost everyone's here. It's dinner time for a bunch of us, isn't it? I just got through trying to wolf down my dinner before I come on here. Are you still having issues?
Yeah, I'm almost done. Sorry, it's trying to load.
Oh.
Okay, I think I got it. Okay, can I play it?
Yeah.
Okay. Shoot, sorry, I can't hear anything.
Right.
Is it sharing audio as well?
I don't think so. No. Did you click that little button?
It just says that I'm sharing my screen, but it doesn't say.
I'm not entirely sure, but I know there's some features that I think only the host can do. I'm not sure if that'll make a difference. You might have to allow it.
Um, so when you selected share screen,
Mm-hmm.
there's a little box that says optimize for video. I think that might be the reason. So,
Someone from last class had the same issue, but I don't know how they fixed it. I forgot
Yeah,
what it was.
I'm gonna like share the window rather than the whole screen, but I can do both.
and then select the box before you hit share that says optimize for videos or something.
Okay, it doesn't
You don't
say
see
that.
that? Oh.
No.
I guess when the box pops up to ask you what screen to use to share, there's a little tiny check box at the bottom. Or you guys can just give your presentation. I think that's probably the way we need to go.
Okay. Amy, do you want to do the presentation then?
Yeah, that's fine if there's
Okay.
no way to play the video.
Yeah, because I can't figure out how to get the audio working. Just let me.
Shelby, and our project is. Oh, wait, it looks like it's working.
Is it working? Like,
yeah, I could hear it. I don't know about everyone else though.
I could hear it.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Our study was conducted because we were curious about the impact that color has on human emotions, specifically how the color of a room can change people's moods. Previous studies had showed that color in things such as pictures and paints can bring up certain memories, moods, and emotions in people just by looking at them. We wanted to know if the color of the room that people were presented with had an impact on their moods, as well as how they change in different states, like something vulnerable, like eating or sleeping, and taking a challenging test where their focus may be altered by something as distracting as a neon room. support this hypothesis, as well as some very interesting findings. The method to our experiment involved a Google form and for our participants to move from one room to another that has a different wall color. Our participants were informed of their consent to this study, and they were later instructed to give their age and favorite color and to respond to 3 sections of questions in the form. These questions ranked their comfort from a level of 1 to 5 and asked them specific questions like how comfortable they would be, such as eating or sleeping.
I think your audio stopped.
Yeah, I don't hear it anymore.
Sorry, give me like 2 seconds. I don't know what happened.
Well, just, go ahead and present what you have here.
Okay. Sorry, I can't. Can you guys see the methods and
I can
questions?
see the methods.
Okay. Sorry, let me bring up my presentation.
So just start in the beginning of the methods section.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Okay. So our survey consisted of 6 sections, and the first section consisted of just the consent form. The second one was basic information. The 3 other sections were based on what questions we were asking, like for the different rooms. And then the last section was the debriefing. We had 22 participants in our group, and they ranged from ages 13 to 61. And the method to our experiment, it involved a Google form and for our participants to move from one room to another that has a different wall color than the one that they were in originally. And our participants were informed of their consent to this study, and they were instructed to give their age and favorite color and respond to the 3 sections about the questions in the form. And these questions ranked their comfort from just baseline, as well as performing some sort of vulnerable act, such as eating or sleeping, as well as how they would feel doing a challenging task, such as taking a test or performing a extensive like homework assignment or something. And we interpreted our results by looking at the 3 main areas of the study, which was the colors of the rooms that people had gone to, their comfort levels, as well as the response to their colors. And later on, we'll show the different graphs of each significant finding. But our study is a single case design, and we used a paired sample t-test in order to tell the difference between the comfort levels in the 2 different rooms that the participants went to in order to show how significant the findings were. And then in the first graph, our findings showed that the rooms that our participants reacted to had very similar results to previous studies that we had looked at, in that blue was an overall very calming color, and that was the one that the participants had the greatest reaction to. And it was incredibly interesting, and it showed that the comfort and preference of the color was of the blue room was significantly greater than all the other rooms shown, And it further just sort of proved the findings that we had, as well as the findings of the other studies. And this graph specifically shows how significant the comfort level was just for the blue room. And the lighter colors of the graph show the higher rankings, whereas the deeper colors show the lower rankings. And then for our second graph, this data shows that the colors of the room that brought comfort did not line up with the participants' favorite colors. This was really interesting because it showed that the comfort and the preference of the colors were not correlated. And it showed that more people tended to prefer the colors that were more excitable and energetic, such as reds and yellows and oranges, as their favorite colors, rather than the calming colors of the rooms. And the black color on the end is the preference of like the favorite color, whereas all the rest are the previous graph, which show which color of room was the most calming. And then for this graph, there's an interesting contrast in our data, which showed that people had room colors that were mostly blue and white, despite the favorite color overall being red. And our data also showed that most people that had white colored walls were more uncomfortable in those rooms than ones that were painted gray or blue or even black. And so that sort of further proved that the studies that we had looked at, as well as our own, that blue overall was the more comforting of the colors. And then finally, the last graph that we have, we saw that there is a significant change in the comfort levels from the people that moved from room to room. This was just the overall thing that we wanted to study, and this was our overall hypothesis. And we found that participants felt a lot more comfortable in cool toned rooms than warm toned or white colored rooms.
All right, so as for our hypothesis, it pretty much checked out, which is what Shelby kind of mentioned earlier, that color has an effect on mood when seeing if a certain room color had more impact on emotion. Our hypothesis is supported, but it would be better if we conducted like more research to get a further explanation of how color changes mood. Like previous research from other researchers, these findings proved that certain colors make a drastic change on emotion, both physically and emotionally. Okay, with the strengths and weaknesses, I think a good strength was that the study truly showed how a color of a room can change one's mood if they were to enter into a different one. For example, a lot of people felt that they were comfortable in the first rooms that they were in, but they didn't feel that way when they entered a different room with a different color. There also didn't have to be a certain order for the results. So like there was no order effect, which is also a plus. But a weakness of the study was that most people had the same colored rooms when going into a new room. Although we're not able to tell if they went into a different room, but it just happened to be the same color or not. People's moods still changed, claiming that they felt more comfortable or they felt more uncomfortable moving into a new room. When it comes to the relativity to other studies, a study showed that when participants compared color saturation and are asked to rate how they feel prior to an experiment, then it's more likely that the conducted observation showed that there was a high correlation of their current emotional state while viewing the colors on different saturations by entering their emotions on a scale of it was 1 to 9. And then with another study that happened to use SPSS, people were displayed colors on a computer in an office space. And some of the emotions had the same meaning while some other emotions were overlapped. This grouped the emotions in the same emotional category, and there was also a grouped category for responses with no indication of emotional response. So like that investigates the reasons for and it investigates the reasons for emotional reactions to and for each color. A good implication for anyone who wants to try this experiment or to improve it would be to have more participants with like a broader age range. Since there was only 22 people in our study, I feel like more people with a variety of different ages would definitely help. This could help the data and then also help us be able to see how colors also affect people of different ages on their emotions. Since we weren't able to do this in person, we weren't able to see their like true authentic emotional reaction to a color of a room.
And that concludes our presentation. And
Concludes
we can take questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you guys check if that person does actually have that feeling? Like how
So what we did is that we had a scale of 1 to 5, and we had a Google form, and we had our participants rate their emotional response on a scale of 1 to 5, and it was all the same scale throughout. And we just asked them different questions based on if they were truly relaxed or not. And we went that off of how, if like the participant would be able to do something like take a nap in a room. You wouldn't really be able to do that if you were super uncomfortable. So they would say like, no, I couldn't at all. And that would show that they would have a true emotional response to the color of the room or just the room itself.
Yeah, and the rooms would also be different colored rooms with the pictures. Hope that answers your question.
For your t-test, did you compare 2 different colors? What was the comparison group?
So the comparison group, yeah, so we did the first room. So we had, in our Google form, we had 3 different sections of the test. And the first section, which I did have the data, I was going to put it later on in the presentation, but it just wouldn't fit, of all of the rooms in comparison to each other. Because there were 5 different rooms that we compared the colors of, that we just showed photos, and then we had the participants rate their emotional response. But then for the second part of our test, we had participants rate how they felt in like a blue room, and then they would go into like a white room or a gray room or some other different color and talk about their emotional response there. And so we rated the first room and the second room, and that was our paired samples t-test.
So really, there wasn't really a difference between your groups though, right?
No, we didn't have a controller experimental.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where things went south here. So it really, you should have compared the answers to the different colored rooms. So say if you have a group that is giving answers based on a red room, you take those answers and compare people's answers based on a blue room, and then people's answers based on, you know, a green room, and so on. So depending on however many colored rooms you have, then you would compare their emotional response to each color. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had that in the data. I just couldn't fit it onto the presentation because there was just so much of the data.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to put the data on the presentation, but so see how you have your tables here where it says samples? That's all you have to show. That's fine. So if you think about it, t-test is when you compare 2 groups. But if you were comparing several rooms, you would have an ANOVA. Do you understand? Because it's like you have a red room, a green room, I don't know how many colored rooms you have, right?
We had 5.
Yeah, so you would compare people's emotional responses. You would have 5 groups. Yeah. Do you get it? So here's how it would look on your data. Let me show you. Now, I'm not, I don't want you guys to get worried and think this is gonna, you did a bad job. I know you guys are just learning. This isn't, you're being evaluated on how well you give a presentation, not whether or not you did your stats right. I just want to preface that. Students get worried when I do this, so I don't want you to get worried. All right, so I'm going to show you. Let's see, where am I here? Okay, I started asking questions. So this is kind of how it would look. Let's see. So you could, let's see. I'm trying to think about it. So you would create a variable, insert, for the color of the room, right? Room color. And you would say, well, then there's red and blue and so on. And if you remember in SPSS, we like to give, you know, categorical variable numbers instead of names. So I would say, well, all my reds were ones. Maybe I had 6 people in a red room. I had, you know, another 5 people in a blue room, and then so on. So this would represent all the different rooms. And then you give me these are the questions, right? Maybe you ask them, you know, 5 different questions on emotions for each room. And then you would fill in the, like, this is person 1. What was their, you know, answers to the emotional questions while they were in a red room, right? And you give all their answers here. Once you're done, you create a total for all the answers, because say you have, let me delete this. You had, say you had 4 questions based on their emotions for each room. Then you create a total score. So you say sum all these questions, right? Oops. So you sum their answers or create a mean for their answers. So now you have 2 values you're looking at. You're having a total emotion score and based on color, and you use those 2 values and run a comparison in SPSS. Does that make sense? I know
Yeah.
it can be a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So although you have a bunch of questions, you have to create a total score for emotions. And that's your
Yeah.
dependent variable.
That's like pretty much exactly what I did in SPSS. I think I just ran the wrong test.
Okay, very good. So you might want to go look back and do an ANOVA instead and compare the colors of rooms. So when you write your final paper, you can get the statistics part of it right. Got it? But otherwise, good job. I mean, you ran into some issues and you handled it well. So thank you. All right, girls. Let's start with, let's do the next group. I need to get all this out of my way. All right.
Did I start sharing my screen now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So our experiment was the effects of advertisements on young adults' self-esteem.
By Amanda Drake and Alvin Sun. All right, let's talk about body image. Body image can be defined as a multidimensional construct that is influenced by biologic, physiologic, and societal factors. Specifically in this study, we really wanted to emphasize on the societal factors, especially advertisements. Advertisements are a very common form of media, but media can mean a lot of things. Social media itself, television, movies, magazines, you name it. But oftentimes in media, there is this image of the ideal body used. And that can mean a number of things, but specifically for women, it's often thin, voluptuous, and due to Eurocentric beauty standards, oftentimes white or pale in complexion. And for men, it's more masculine and muscular and still, unfortunately, often white. So very exclusive. Media exposure may also be related to eating attitudes, self-objectification, and body dissatisfaction in both men and women. This is really important to us because we wanted to see if there is an effect on advertisements and young adults' self-esteem. Young adults' self-esteem and identity is in a really critical period of their life. How do people perceive me? How do I want to be perceived? What do I look like? What do I want to look like? And if they're surrounded by these images of the ideal body, they're bound to want to replicate that. But the thing is, this ideal body image is often unattainable due to Photoshop, airbrushing, or cosmetic surgery. And to find out that you can't look like that, it may have a negative effect on one's self-esteem and self-worth. Beauty, fashion, health, and fitness brands, companies, magazines, whatever media they put out there, they oftentimes promote this unattainable and unrealistic body image. And they do this to either gain attention because it's considered attractive, or oftentimes they shame people for not looking like that. Not everybody is thin, not everybody is represented in the media, and this can affect them negatively. So our purpose of our experiment was to see, do advertisements have an effect on young adults' self-esteem?
So starting off, our null hypothesis will be subjects' self-esteem will remain the same after viewing the ads. And our research hypothesis is that subjects will have lower self-esteem after viewing the advertisements. And our independent variable are advertisements, exclusive or inclusive. And exclusive meaning that there's not a lot of diversity, and these are ads that set unrealistic standards. And inclusive means that, you know, it is diverse, it's realistic, it promotes, you know, positivity, and it's accepting to all types of forms. And the dependent variable is the general self-esteem score, which we scale from 1 to 5.
Okay, participants. We had 29 participants total. 20 of them were women, 7 were men, and 2 were non-binary. Our age range was specifically 18 to 25 because that's what we felt we considered to be a young adult group. We also did not exclude anybody. It was a diverse group. We would take anybody we could. And as you can see in the right corner, we have a nice little pie chart representing all the ethnicities of the participants. 41% were Caucasian, specifically non-Hispanic, as opposed to 17% were Latino or Hispanic. 31% were Asian or Pacific Islander, 3% Middle Eastern, and 4% Indigenous. And our locations were also, or the city of residency of our participants was also a nice little spread across the map. Most of them were from Huntington Beach. That was 14 of our participants, 6 from Garden Grove, 2 from Beaverton, Oregon, 2 from Stanton, California, 1 Irvine, Bellingham, Portland, Vista, and Lawrenceville. And that one is much farther.
So starting with our materials, so we made 2 Google Forms. One of them was a pretest, and one of them was a survey. And the pretest the purpose of the pretest was to get their initial feelings and confidence before seeing the ads. So we had them take that first, and then we sent out the survey, which consisted of 22 questions and we had 2 slideshows, which had, one of them were experimental group advertisements, and one of them were the control group advertisements. So we separated into 2 groups, and then we accordingly sent out the slideshows to the groups. And each of them had 16 images. And then we have the informed consent form. And like I mentioned earlier, like as you can see on the right, we use the ordinal scale. And one example of a question is on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident do you feel today? 1 being not confident, and then 5 is very confident.
So we're going to provide for you some examples of the images we used in both the PowerPoints. These first 5 are going to be from our group that had the more exclusive body image ads, and they had about 10 minutes to observe these. There's way more, but we didn't want to take up all the time, so this is just a sample. And then we have the more inclusive ones. Again, both groups had 10 minutes to observe these. So that's just a sample.
And the way we went about conducting this is step 1, we separated participants into 2 groups through a random number generator. So the control group, which is the realistic body image group, and the experimental, which had the unrealistic body image. So step 2, we just sent out the informed consent form we had on Google Docs. And then like I mentioned earlier, we had the pre-test. And we actually did this the day before we actually sent out the slideshows so that we can possibly avoid recency bias in case that, they just answer the same way. So we sent out the slideshows 1 day later, and the slideshows included just like what you guys saw previously in the pictures that Amanda just showed us. And then after 10 minutes, they had the survey to take. So the survey consisted of 14 questions about their emotions and their feelings about the ads, and 8 questions were demographics. And our results. Okay, so we conducted a paired samples t-test to compare the changes in self-esteem after looking at the advertisements. So as you can see in the chart we made on Excel to the right, we have a pre-test group and the post-test group. So the pre-test is obviously before they saw the advertisements, and post-test is after. And we found that there are no significant results. As you can see, the two-tailed significance, or the p-value, as you could also call it, is 0.68. And the p-value, since it is higher than 0.05, it shows that our data indicates that these relationships between the unhealthy images and their feelings for their confidence before is not that significant. It didn't change that much, and we have accepted it is a null hypothesis. And the mean scores for pre-test were 2.92, and the mean score for the post-test was 3.01. And as you can see, there's really not much of a difference. It's only 0.085. And the effect size, or Cohen's d, was negative 0.07736. And what Cohen's d is the effect size for the comparison of the pre-test and the post-test. And our data shows that there is really a slight difference between those two. So concluding that really there isn't too much influence of these ads on our participants.
Okay, so for our discussion, starting with the strengths, and this is one of the few strengths I think that could come out from having to do an experiment completely online, was being able to lay out all the links easily on a Google Doc. It made it really easy for the participants to find everything, with some instructions being the reminders, please take the informed consent form first, that's mandatory if you want to participate. And then secondly, the waiting in time, and we were able to properly administer the treatment or the slideshows a day later to make sure they didn't peek ahead. So also another strength is that because a lot of our participants were people that we knew when they texted us after that they had completed the survey, they also reported that it was easy to take. And that made us feel a bit better about the survey, knowing that it wasn't complicated at all. But time for the weaknesses. Subjects were not in a controlled environment. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we couldn't get them all together in a room and make sure that they took the pre-test and then came back a day later for the treatment and the post-test, which could allow a number of factors to affect their self-esteem in between that time. With that being said, that also applies to the fact that some participants may have waited 2 days before they took in their have taken their post-test, and that could have meant even more factors affected them. Another weakness is that our tools may have been about outdated. We tried to keep our advertisements as recent as possible within the last 5 to 10 years up to now. Unfortunately, advertising has changed a lot, I'd say in the last 2 years. They gotten very sneaky, and a lot of it is paid promotions through like social media influencers. It's much sneakier and it's a bit harder to track down for a project where you need to just gather a bunch of images, and it would have looked a little sloppy to have a bunch of Instagram screenshots. Although I think it could have helped because a lot of things being promoted are weight loss teas, diets, and waist trainers that oftentimes don't work and are kind of really bad for you a lot of the time. Another thing is that there weren't enough participants. It seemed like it was going to be easy to bring people in online because it's like, oh, all you have to do is take a survey. But unfortunately, a lot of people signed the informed consent form and then just never actually participated. And then our last weakness was that we felt it was a little hard to reach men in a lot of ways. We only had 7 male participants. And also in the part of picking advertisements directed towards men, there just weren't very many or enough of a variation to choose from for whether it was for the experimental ads or the control. Especially for the more inclusive ones, it just doesn't seem like there's very much body positivity for men yet. And so that was kind of sad in the bigger picture that it's not there to support them, but also for experiment because it was hard to reach men emotionally for this study specifically. Any questions?
I had a question.
Hi.
Hi. So, what gave you guys the idea to do this experiment?
I'll take this one. So when I was in high school, I took an English class called Literature in Modern Media, and we watched a ton of documentaries, and they were personally my favorite. And a lot of them had to do with advertising and Photoshop, and especially it was more so on how it affected teenage girls because I was able to relate to it very personally. But I kind of wanted to give it a try myself because they're a little outdated. The 2000s were a wild time for advertising. If any of you have seen some of the offensive ads or even just the crazy Photoshopped ones, and you know, things are different now. So I kind of just wanted to see what kind of effect that would have on today's generation.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
So because the significant level is about like 0.6 CPA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
is that a strong evidence to say that the hypothesis is completely wrong, or it actually can change?
I think so. I somewhat feel like we may have ran our test wrong. So I'm not exactly sure if I'm not sure. Sorry.
So what do you think you could have changed as far as the way you designed it?
In the way we designed it, or for the actual test, like the t-test?
Just how you the steps that you took with your participants, the procedure.
I do somewhat feel that maybe if we hosted a Zoom meeting to make sure that they took the 10 minutes to observe the images, and then we could have even included more so that they wouldn't get, you know, I feel like when we gave them just a few, it was because we didn't want to get bored because we didn't have to watch them watch it. But I feel like maybe if we hosted a Zoom meeting, it could have brought in more participants because they would have not felt obligated, but they maybe would have felt it was more fun because they were like doing it as a group maybe.
Yeah. Well, another thing is, well, I had like, was your pre-test and your post-test asking the same questions?
Yes. So
Yeah.
just to specify a bit more, a lot of the questions were filler ones to conceal the real purpose of what we were looking for.
Okay.
Because the general confidence score was like an average of like 4 questions, like rating your self-esteem, and then the rest of them were fillers because
Okay.
we were nervous that they would figure it out, and then their answer to be influenced to our benefit because a lot of them are friends or family.
I think another thing you could have done is, instead of waiting a whole day between the pre-test and the post-test, you could have just given them the pre-test before looking at the advertisements, and then done it again right afterwards. Because a person's mood from day to day can change based on other events happening in their lives. So the difference between the tests could have, that could have been what you were measuring instead of how the advertisements were affecting them.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So I wonder if, so you were comparing the pre-test and the post-test, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you also had two different groups, a regular body image and different body image.
Yeah,
So
that's
did you do another t-test to compare the difference between groups?
no, that's why I don't know if you recall, but a few lectures ago, I did kind of ask about that, and maybe I wasn't clear that it was like 2 groups, as in like 2 different body images. But we kind of felt that that was what was wrong with it, but we didn't want to go against what you told me in the last lecture, so we weren't sure.
Okay, let me share a screen. So what you actually have is, you have 2 different groups, and the pre and post tests is the same group, right? Because it's the same person's pre-test comparing that to the post-test. That's the same person. Then you also have another test that's between groups, right? 2 different groups. So really what you're looking at is a test that can look at, it's called a one within and between test. Let's see, portion of my screen. I think I have it on there. Oops, I don't. Here we go. Let's see. So that's not what I want. So for your statistics, you would be looking at a, let's see, a mixed factorial ANOVA. So do you see how one of your categorical variables is within subjects, which means it's the same people. That's the pre-test and post-test. Yeah. Then you have another categorical variable that's between subjects. That's comparing the regular advertisements to the other body image advertisements. That's 2 different groups. So you have a categorical that's within and a categorical that's between. And then the continuous variable is their emotional status. Do you see what that is? So you might watch that video and see if you can try it out.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll
Thank
we'll make
you.
sure to fix that for our paper. Also, I just got your message, and my camera was on, but for some reason when I screen share, it turns off. But I did have it on.
I thought I saw you, and I couldn't figure out what happened.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So disappearing people. All right, so that was pretty good, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
we have group 7.
Okay, Holly and I are group 7, but I have to check just in case, because let me just check real quick. Group number 7. Okay, where can I see the names of the group members? Because I forgot if we were 7 or 8.
Oh, okay. I'll find out. Hmm. So for group 7, that's Khalid, Al, and then Holly. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that we weren't supposed to use a video, but we have a video. We made it, but if you want us to go live, we could do that instead. It's up to you.
How
I,
long is the video?
I think it's 6 minutes long. Around
Okay,
that.
let's do it. We're in a hurry at this point.
So should I do the video?
Please, yes, if you
Okay.
can get it to work. If we run into problems, then we're gonna just have you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me, can you guys hear anything? No, you guys can't hear anything, right?
No.
Okay.
Looks like it's just not working tonight for some reason. Sorry,
I
guys.
have no idea what's going on.
I prefer the just in person anyway. So.
Oh, okay. I'll just do it live instead. It's okay. I'm sorry, I have like a million tabs open.
Me too.
Yeah, it's depressing, honestly. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, present. 1 second. I'm just gonna keep this so you guys can see. And yeah, okay, Holly, you can take it.
So we were testing how lighting affects emotional response. And then you can go to the next one. Usually types of lighting are associated with different circumstances and settings. Yellow light is often associated with warm or sunny weather. So we think that people might have a positive reaction to yellow light, and fluorescent lighting is commonly associated with clinical environments like dentist office or doctors, things like that. And lighting is often used to in marketing, or when someone in a movie wants to sway the feelings of someone who's watching. I know Wes Anderson, he uses a lot of yellow for his movies. So even though the plots are really sad, his whole movie is really sunny and bright, and you leave feeling pretty optimistic. You can go to the next one. In a study in Sweden, did a compared how packaged food is viewed in yellow and fluorescent lighting. It was ranked on appearance, visual appeal, and quality. And overall, the participants thought that the food in the blue or fluorescent lighting was not as appealing. It looked a little cheaper and of poor quality. And in the yellow lighting, they thought it was more expensive and looked just more edible. Okay, you can. A 2018 study, also done in Sweden, tested the performance of office workers, and they found that they had completed their tasks more efficiently in brighter light, and reported that they had a happier outlook. Okay. It is hypothesized that participants will respond cynically to mood evaluation under fluorescent lighting than light under yellow lighting. The materials we used were an adjustable light bulb, and you could use it from your phone, and we just did that whichever condition we were testing on that participant. We also had 2 types of surveys, a timer set to 30 minutes just so they can keep track of their time, and Excel and Google Slides.
Okay, and as for the methods that we used, the participants were first provided with a consent form, and like we gave them 30 minutes to fill that out, like with the survey. And each of the participants, like they were given 14 questions to indicate, like each of the participants were given a 14-question survey to indicate their mood while under blue lighting. And we tested the participants again under yellow lighting. And the test the experiment was spaced a few days apart just to make sure that the test is kind of like valid, like more fair. And the data that was recorded was then manipulated in Microsoft Excel. So for the participants, we used the within subjects design, and out of those 10 participants, six of which were female, and we also had 4 males, and their ages ranged from 18 to 85. So there was like a variety of demographics and backgrounds. As for the results, a t-test was conducted to organize and compare the effects that white and yellow lighting have on emotional response. Researchers found that both yellow and white lighting did in fact have a significant impact on the effects on both mood and behavior. Participants were found to be in much calmer mood when exposed to yellow lighting than they were when they were exposed to white lighting. And that's I think that's because usually people are reminded of dentist office or like hospitals because of the white light that they use over there. So maybe it can like affect your moods. And the null hypothesis was rejected. So these are the results that we had. These are the participants over here. I had to compare the first test up to 10 with the second one because the first one was on like different lightings. And what's it called? It was less, this is the formula that I ended up getting. I'm not 100% sure if this is correct because this is the first time I use Excel, but I followed the tutorial step by step. And if I'm not mistaken, it was less than 0.05, which is why we rejected the null hypothesis. And then as for the discussion, the present study found that being exposed to white or yellow lighting elicits significant emotional response. And we used the t-tests. We concluded that the null hypothesis should be rejected, and we had confounding variables. The weaknesses was that we didn't have enough participants, especially me since I live alone and I don't have any family here. So, but thankfully, Holly has a big family and she was able to get a bunch of people. And the strengths were that the survey consisted of 14 questions, which made this the experiment kind of more straightforward and thorough. And then these are the sources that we have for the articles and about the different information that we had about the yellow lighting versus the white lighting on how it affects mood and behavior. And this is the end of our presentation. Professor, okay.
All right, are there any questions?
I'm curious as to what kind of questions you asked on your survey to determine their moods.
Yeah, Holly, you got this.
It was a scale questions. We made a statement and asked them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 if that statement is true or not.
So were you asking them mood questions, their mood?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, based on how they felt on different how their mood was with different lightings, and we concluded that a bunch of them felt more calmer when they were exposed to yellow lighting than they were when exposed to white lighting.
So I have a question. So they do know that you want to study about the light, right?
I'm sorry?
They do know that you want to study about the effect of the light, right?
Did they know or did we know?
Oh no, they didn't know what was being tested.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first parts of your question.
Yeah, so on your results page there, those are just the data, right?
Yeah, this is the okay, so from 1 to 10 was there questions and everything based on like yellow lighting, and then the other, like the rest of it is because like they did the same test twice, one with yellow lighting and one with like white lighting.
So did you create a, so you're asking them, you needed to create like a, a variable, like where it says participants, instead of numbering them 1 through 20, you need to like indicate which ones were the yellow lighting and which ones were the white lighting. You understand?
Oh, I didn't know that I had to like show that over here. But when I did like when I did use the t-test with the formula and everything, I just like compared the first 10 with the second 10. So like
Yeah.
this number
So
is to show the different groups.
It probably gave your Excel program a headache when you did that.
It gave me a headache because I wasn't sure how to use it.
It gave
But
you a headache.
I went on YouTube and I found a tutorial and I was going step by step, honestly. I just hoped for the best.
Yeah, so what you needed to do is like determine which participants were the white lighting, which ones were the yellow lighting. And then you take all of the answers to these scores and make calculate a total mean score on all of the answers they have there.
Okay.
So then you would end up, I'm gonna show my screen again.
Okay.
But you guys are probably
I just had a quick question about that. Like, doesn't this number show any of that information? Like, can't you tell us from this one?
No, that might be a T statistic, but it wasn't done properly, so it kind of doesn't mean anything right now. Yeah. Well, let me show you.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, another group had difficulty, and this is where I always catch you guys, so don't feel bad. I don't grade on whether or not you got your stats right on this. I'm looking at your PowerPoint and how well you present it. That's why it's a presentation, okay?
I just want you to know that I'm almost 21 years old, and this is the first time I ever use Excel. So keep in mind that I have tried my best.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So like them, you would have like, say the yellow color, you might give them all 1s, and then maybe your white colored, you might give them all 2s.
Instead of a number.
You like numbers, yeah. Okay. And then you have all your questions here, right? Mm-hmm. Then you add or create a mean of all the answers here. Okay. Make a column, create a mean, and then if you drag this down, it'll do it real quick and add them all up. So okay. Say I'm putting in the answers.
Okay.
Oops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
So now after you've got your categorical variable and your dependent variable here. Mm-hmm. This total score ends up being your dependent variable. Those are the two scores you pop in your analysis. Mm-hmm. Right. And then it'll pop out the right answers for you after you do that.
I will definitely remember that for next time.
Okay.
Also, a pretty good indicator in Excel is if you get a number with a decimal point and it has an E after it, that means an exponent or there's additional points over. So it's not really 2.58, it's really 0.00000.
Yeah, he said something about that in the tutorial, but it was so confusing and he was all over the place. So I was like, okay,
that's
I'm just
not the real number.
Right. I hope for the best.
Yeah, Sabrina nailed it. I was just not going to go there, but thank you. I was like, yeah, whatever.
I'm a financial analyst. I do it for a living.
Yeah, and it usually means you blew it somewhere. Because you don't usually want numbers like that. So.
No, you see an E and you close your laptop. That's just, it's the end of the workday.
It's over. All right, guys. So thank you. Very good. Last group. Let's get this. Hopefully we can get this one done pretty quickly. We have group 8.
Am I allowed to leave if it's after 6? Because I have some work for other classes.
You should be.
Sorry, I would love to stay and learn more, but I'll have to catch you guys on the flip side. Okay. Hope you guys have a good day.
Take care. So we have group 8. Sorry. Nope. Group 8 is gone?
Yeah, no, we're here.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, no.
Professor, because it is after 6, I do have to go.
Okay.
But we're good to go on Monday.
Great.
Okay. See you on Monday.
So be ready this time. I'm not gonna wait on people
We can present today, but she's got to go. But just to show you like our faith, how about I show you a quick presentation? I'll just scroll through it so you see we did the work, and then we'll present on Monday. Does that work? Here, let me share the screen real quick. Just so you're like, because I really wanted to present, but I get that my partner has, we have things going on in life.
Here's the thing, we only have enough time for the 4 groups. So if you guys could create a video for me to watch on my own time.
I would rather just do it live. I have so much going on in my other classes. I don't even have the time to make a video, to be honest. But I don't know if you guys can see this right now. We have the presentation. I can present, but unfortunately, since this is a group project, my partner has to go. I don't know what to do.
So maybe if you guys can get together for 15 minutes, create a video in Zoom. You can use a link that I provide for groups if you want. I'll see it and I'll just watch it and I won't have to take up the classroom's time. Next time we have groups, anyone who's kind of, please be prepared to just go. It was kind of unfortunate we had those sound issues.
Yeah, because I'm like ready to go. And like I have so much going on. I can't make the video. I put so much work into this. I'm taking 19 units this semester.
I'll let you go ahead and present.
What?
You can go ahead and present.
Can we go like first thing early Monday? Or just go quick?
I can't because then that leaves the other groups without their ability to present. So maybe another solution is you can present the presentation to me now, and since your partner can't stay, she can make a video, which I'll watch later, of the same presentation for herself.
Can I do that, Adrian? Is that okay?
That works. I told my mom I'd go get my brother, and I didn't because I thought we were going to go on Monday, and so now he's just stranded. So I don't want to leave him there because I said I was going to go get him. I didn't know it was going to be like a big issue. Yeah. So that's my bad.
I'm not going to allow for delays next time. So yeah, go ahead and just you can do a video for me. Send me an email, say, hey, Prof, here's my video, and I'll watch it. And then I'll give you a presentation grade that way. And I'll let Michael go ahead and shoot right now. He seems raring to go.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know. Hopefully I handled that okay. I didn't want to. I'm not creating drama. She's been a great partner, but I don't want to do a video. I'd rather just go right now. I've done presentations for a living before. It's weird recording it. I'd rather record it to an audience. So hopefully that's okay with you guys.
It's fine with me.
Okay. Can you see it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the effects on test results by various time intervals. This study is an investigation into the differences in test performance between a test that is timed compared to the same test with no time limit. Some variables of interest are stress, anxiety, and overall test performance. All right, introduction of Sue and Mazako. This was one of our sources. It was a study of math anxiety and test performance under time testing conditions. The procedure was 2 groups, untimed and timed. The results, math performance significantly less accurate during time test. The time test pressure possibly leads to heightened anxiety, hindering test performance. And Rice, this is another study that we used as an example when we were doing research. Test pressure and results. Procedure was memory test. Results, anxious students performed poorly on recall test. Time limit, added pressure, which hindered results. Hypothesis, those who take the time test will not perform as well on the assigned task than those who are able to take the test without a time limit. And that was our hypothesis. Sorry, that was not part of this study that we used. This hypothesis is our hypothesis going into the research paper. We had 24 participants, 2 groups split into 12 participants, 14 men and 10 women overall. Group 1 had 7 men and 5 women, and group 2 had 7 men and 5 women. It was all random, flip of a coin. The age range was 18 to 71. Ethnicity, African American, Asian Pacific Islander, Caucasian, and Latino Hispanic. Education levels ranged from, I'm sorry, we actually missed, there should have been a high school in here, high school degree all the way to a professional JD degree, law degree. Moving on to the next part. We use SurveyMonkey for our surveys for the groups. Group 1 got an untimed test, and group 2 got a timed test. The same exact survey, the only difference was that it was controlled with the time test. We were able to actually sit there with the people and time them to make sure that they weren't going over the limit. Whereas the rest of the participants that were on the untimed test, we let them have as much time as they wanted to take the test. What they were testing on was a short quiz on markets of Trajan, and it's from a Khan Academy. It's a short 4-minute video. It's actually pretty straight and simple. I actually watched this video when I was in art history class over the summer, and it was something that I thought was easy to put together. And anyone from the age of like 18, which was our study group, all the way to 70 could watch this video and retain the information. It was pretty simple. Not something that anyone had to study it beforehand. You know, when Abraham and I were talking about creating, how are we going to create this study or this test, we were thinking, how do we test someone on something without having them get a chance to really do the research or memorize or, you know, do their homework before. And then I came up with the idea of, let's give them all the same video. We'll all have them watch it, and then we'll give them really simple, you know, true or false, multiple choice questions after the fact, so they can answer it. And straight and simple, the point of it wasn't to stump them. It was just to see if we could recall their information and if there was a difference with the people that were timed versus untimed. Moving on to the next part. So after the participants signed the informed consent, each individual was randomly assigned one of the 2 groups to determine whether they were assigned to the timed test group or the untimed test group. Sorry, to the timed test group or the untimed test group. This was achieved by a flip of a coin to assign the participant to group 1 or 2. The participants were told that the study is about people's awareness of stress and anxiety during quiz and test taking. Both groups were given the same 54-minute video titled Markets of Trajan from the Khan Academy. After watching the video, the second group of the participants were given a time test, and the first were given the same time test and no limit. The test consisted of only 5 multiple choice questions, and the group of participants that were being timed had a total of only 3 minutes to complete the test. Step 3, after the test was completed, all participants completed a short survey to evaluate their perceived levels of stress and anxiety. The survey consisted of a 5-point Likert scale. The results of the participants' test was then compared to both groups' perceived level of stress and anxiety when taking the test. Just some notes. All participants completed the task individually, either in the comfort of their own home or at my house. I had a tough time, you know, at first we were going to do this online, and then I really wanted to do this in a controlled environment. And to me, this was the best way to do it. If we were, you know, pre-pandemic, if we were at OCC, we probably would have found a classroom or somewhere that we could have done this where students could have met. But we chose to do it this route instead, and it worked pretty good. Let me go on to this next part. If anyone was curious, these were the test questions that we asked if you read the video. If we had more time, I was planning on skimming through the video for you guys to watch it. I can still show you that. I have the link, so I can share that information as well. But these are the questions that we asked. And they may seem complicated. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if you watch the video, it's pretty straightforward. it's something that I would, if I was a teacher, I'd probably show it to a class of 5th or 6th graders. It wasn't anything about like psychobiology or anything. It was just a history lesson. So this is what the answers were and the questions. Significance. So participants in group 1, untimed, only missed 3 answers as an entire group. 57 out of 60 to be exact. Participants in group 2, the timed group, missed a combined total of 32 out of 60 questions, which is crazy. People who took the untimed test rated the perceived levels of anxiety, stress as almost non-existent, whereas the group of participants who I'm sorry, there's a spelling error there. It should say took, not tool. The group of participants who took the timed test perceived much higher levels of stress and anxiety. And we did this by having them perceive their own levels of stress. They had to be honest with themselves. You know, there's definitely probably a flaw there because I'm sure some people are biased, but you can see it from this Excel sheet, the overwhelmingly amount of data in regards to perceived level of stress and anxiety. Let me move on to the next part and show you guys. So this was the results. From a graph standpoint, untimed test versus time test. Of the participants who took the time test, they had little to somewhat to much perceived levels of stress during the test compared to not much to little for the untimed. And then for the results, oops, I skipped something. Results of stress, the same thing, not much to little, I'm sorry. For anxiety, the same thing, not much and little. For anxiety, for untimed test group, and then for the time test group, we had little all the way to a great deal of anxiety. I mean, to be fair, we only gave them 3 minutes, so that's pretty quick. I know it was only 5 simple questions, but moving on to the SPSS T-test. This was a part, Professor, that both her and I were a little confused about because I didn't see much of a difference, significance compared to the results that I had on Excel. I had some major issues with SPS and logging into our computers on OCC's campus. Abraham was able to take over this part and focus more on this part of the study. When we were evaluating it and talking about this yesterday and earlier today, we both were kind of like stumped, and we were looking forward to chatting with you in this. I know this was something that she was like probably excited for us to wait till Monday because she wanted to fix this, but after seeing the past presentations, I figured that you would be okay. Like we did really try. I just don't think this is right. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
It looks right to me.
It is right.
Yeah.
Okay. See, maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Here, let me explain what you're showing.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the top box, you can kind of pinpoint it too. See the mean for untimed? Yep. On average, 4.75. That's a higher mean than the timed, which is 2.25, much lower.
Sure. So that part I understood to be correct, but what I was talking about was the independent sample test. I'm sorry, I said t-test, but with this independent sample test below, this is where I was confused with the equal variances and not equal variances not assumed.
So I remember when we were looking at this, if the first sig number is significant, you have to look at the bottom row, but if it's not significant, you look at the top row. Well, in this case, it really doesn't matter because if you look in that row where it says sig two-tailed, they're both significant anyway.
Right.
So yes, you have a significant difference here.
Okay. Discussion strengths, sampling style, flip of a coin to assign groups, random sampling, and then another strength survey data collection, as well as a controlled environment. Weaknesses, small sample size. Also, data collection would have been easier with 1 survey instead of 2 identical surveys for each group. That's one thing that I realized when it was too late, that I created 2 identical surveys and I was trying to get that data over to Excel and then to SPSS, and it was giving me issues because there were 2 separate groups, 2 separate data groups, if that makes sense. And I could have done everything on 1 survey, still being identical, and just had them select whether they were in group 1 or 2 on like a multiple choice question. And that's something that I realized I could have done after the fact, but it was a good lesson because I'll remember this for the next time.
Well, are you gonna have to take another stats class?
I might. I got in. I probably will have to take a. I got into UCLA, so I'm taking a research. Probably I'm gonna take a research class next semester.
Oh yeah, you'll have to know. So yeah, you can either do it after or before the fact. You can combine them.
Yeah.
It was the same test, right? So
I'm sorry.
it was the same test on both.
It was the same exact test, and I can even show you the survey. They're identical surveys.
Yeah.
It just was a pain in the butt when it came down to me gathering it because I had to export two separate surveys, even though they were the same. And it dawned on me that I should have just made one survey and give them the option to tell me which group they were in, and that would have made it so much simpler.
Even if you download the two separate files, you can create an extra column that says, oh, these ones were the first test, and then make sure you label the other ones as the second test or the timed and untimed. And then you could just cut and paste the other ones into it.
Right.
You'll have the one file, and that extra column would tell you which group's answers are which.
Got it. So going down to hypothesis, this was Abereen's slide, and we collaborated on the entire slide. As you can see, it's pretty all well formatted. But this was when her and I were confused about the t-test, and so I saw the proportion. I mean, if you see earlier in the sides, I do call out the significance on the Excel slide of data back here. I do talk about it. But on this slide, when she was putting together her discussion part for her part of the survey, she was referring to this. And so you can see, I mean, we're on the same page. It's not like we were arguing with each other, but we just were a little confused about this part, even though we knew that there was significance here. And so coming here, we were a little unsure with the hypothesis. Obviously, we can fix this. It is supported. Our hypothesis was correct. Based on the t-test, there is significance between untimed and timed test results. But one thing that I do want to put is it would be nice to have a larger sample size just to see where that numbers will take us.
Yeah, and based on the wide difference between your means, I would say you have a very strong difference.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just had a hard time interpreting this. I took stats like a year and a half ago.
So it's all gone out of your brain.
It's all gone. And so I'm like trying to pick this up, and I was doing some research on my own in Google, but I'm taking 19 units this semester, and I'm like 2 more weeks to go, and I'm just like I'm on the same stretch, and I just
why your head looks like it's gonna pop off.
right. But I love presenting. Like, this is really fun for me. I had a great time doing this, and I wanted to get it out of the way. Like, I was excited to present today, as you can tell in my passionate voice. So
yeah, it is fun.
Following up discussion, connections to past research. No significant difference in time. There was significant difference in time versus untimed test. Similar findings in regards to increased anxiety and pressure that comes with a time test environment. We did see similar findings to some of these first research. The first parts of the research that we did see some connections to our research. So that was kind of nice. Definitely see a worse performance in time testing in both experiments. Build on the implications of our research, build on the notion that time testing increases anxiety and pressure, which hinders test performance. Helps people understand that time testing environment is stressful. Better solution is not pressuring individuals to complete a test in a given time increment. Further testing is needed to get a sample population size. Questions? Thank you.
Awesome. Good job, Michael.
A lot.
I just have to say your topic looks really familiar.
Yeah.
So.
Why? How so?
I'm doing virtually my experiment's basically the same thing.
Oh, no way.
Time test and anxiety. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, the questions in my survey were different and kind of had a different guise as to what kind of pressure I was trying to impose on people.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how the results kind of differ, but it was something I was interested in too. And also congrats on being a Bruin. I'm a golden bear, so I'm a little salty, but it's okay.
You went to Berkeley.
I'll let it pass.
You went to Berkeley. Nice. You know what? It's just too far for me. Like, UCLA is so perfect, and I don't have to move.
Oh,
and
nice.
So I didn't even when I was UCLA was my top choice, but Berkeley's a top choice too. I just, I'm a Southern California boy.
I was 18 at the time.
My son's Anteater. Why did they
He
name
is.
him that?
So I got into UCI too, and Santa Barbara and UCSD, and I'm like amazed that I get these options, I get to choose, and like I can't turn down UCLA. I just can't. I was stoked for UCI. I was really excited, and then Santa Barbara happened, and then San Diego happened, and then I found out from UCLA, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to UCLA.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So yeah, all positive vibes, but I'm just like so stressed out trying to maintain like A's by this semester ends, and because I want, with the agreement, just because I got in, I can't let things slip, and so I just want to like finish really strong. So I'm really stressed out. Like I can't wait for this semester.
Well, I get the not wanting to leave because I mean I was 18 when I went away for undergrad, so I just wanted to get the hell out.
Yeah.
So and then I went even further. So I went Berkeley, Harvard, then I came back and went to UCI. So I'm also an anteater.
Wow.
Oh, no.
We'll have to network and like connect or something, because I want to like pick your brain. That's really interesting. And I'm like the same age as you. I just had a weird late start. I worked for Oakley in research and development for like 6 years before the pandemic, and I got laid off. And so I went back to school and literally got laid off 10 months ago. This time, about 10, 11 months ago, actually. And I applied to a bunch of schools in the fall. I had the units. I was already going to school part time while working for Oakley, and I just like maxed out on classes the last year. And now I'm like getting all this amazing feedback and response. All the colleges are responding back, and I'm just like so stoked.
Well, I'm not the brain to pick, because I started out at OCC. I did 75 units in one school year, and then I finished my other 75 units at Berkeley in one school year, and then I did each one of my master's degrees. I have 3 of them in a year each. So I'm a psycho.
Oh, no way.
I'm not normal.
No, you are. That's.
Yeah, no, I took path. I had a weird, I graduated high school in 2008, and then my parents went through a bad divorce, and I was going to Saddleback Community College, Mission Viejo, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't in the right mindset. I just like didn't have the focus, and I have ADHD, but I'm not using that as a crutch. But back then it was definitely a more big crutch for me than it is now. And so, I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and I started working for the school district, and then I applied for this sales job at Oakley, and I got it, and it changed my life. And I found myself getting hired into the research and development department. They made a position for me, and I was like their researcher. I would go over the country and the world to major sporting events, and I was a user experience researcher. And I just learned from engineers. They taught me. It was this incredible. That was my school for 6 years, and then I got laid off. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? I have this amazing resume. I should have had my master's. I was working with people who have their master's and PhD. And I learned and soaked up all this amazing research knowledge. And so I knew that I wanted to do something psychology based, because that's pretty much what I was doing. And and so here we are. And it's like, it's crazy. And you never know. Life is never too late to go back to school, because I just turned 30 in August, and I never thought I would go back to UCLA. I never thought I would get into UCLA. So I was 10 years ago. And so
you're running on a natural high.
The ball's rolling. And, I was devastated when I got laid off. I had a really good career job, great benefits, and making way more money than I should have for where my ceiling was as far as an education level. And I learned so much, but I was devastated when I got laid off. And looking at it now, it was the best thing to ever happen to me. I went back to school full time. I've knocked out almost 50 units in the last year, almost, including summer and an intersession, a lot. And here we are. So it's crazy. Sorry, I just went on a tangent for you guys.
You guys don't do what I did. I don't know how. I don't know why. Don't ask me. I don't know how I got the GPAs I did, or the GMAT scores, or none of that. So I am not a standard.
No, I went on a straight A path, and I wouldn't have done this if I was 20. And everything that I learned from Oakley in my career and knowledge, and just working with people and working at a corporate job, and just going back to school, I have a whole new mindset and appreciation for what I've learned and what I am learning. And I'm like a totally different person than I was 10 years ago. And you know, society has this thing where like you have to go to college after high school. It's so BS in my opinion. I think you need to go when you're ready. And I don't think college is for everyone either, but I think it's for more people than they think. But I just don't think everyone's ready in some parts of their life. I think people are more ready in you know, other areas. And so that certainly was me. And there was some points in my life 5 or 6 years ago when I wasn't even sure. I always wanted to, but I was like, I don't know. Like I was in the middle of a job, and once you start working, it's tough to get back out into school. And so it takes a pandemic for some people to figure it out.
Yep. Sometimes something that seems bad is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
I know I'm a crazy person coming back and getting a 5th degree, so don't mind me.
I don't know why I went. Make up your mind instead of torturing yourself.
That's so crazy to hear.
I don't know if it's necessary, Professor. I can share the survey with you on SurveyMonkey too if you guys want me to, or it's up to you.
Oh no, that's okay.
Okay.
Just turn in the survey where it says, or the presentations where it says presentations.
Do you mind if I edit the presentation with the ending results and say it was significant?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
This research again has like brought, because I was doing a lot of this at Oakley, and so this has brought like things back to me. Like, okay, I remember this again. Like this is like all of this stuff, the presentation.
Oh, really?
Presenting to doing like pulling the information. I'm really familiar with SurveyMonkey because that's what we used at Oakley
Oh yeah.
for a long time. And then the last 2 years at Oakley, we used Qualtrics, and so I was really familiar with Qualtrics, but it's expensive, and so I can't get that right now. So SurveyMonkey was an easily achievable tool for me to use for this project. It was super helpful.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, it works for here.
It works. It's not the best for a company, but it for a research project in the school, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
So okay. Anyways, sorry.
You abandoned us.
I hope I did good.
All right. Yes, you did.
Okay.
Good job, Michael.
Thank you. Thanks, Professor.
Good luck.
Monday. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.